go live here. But hey, welcome to the Writing Momentum Q&A today, live. We're talking on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn and Twitter, and we are taking questions. If you've got any questions, I'm Christopher Maselli. This is Renee Gutteridge, and this is Gina Maselli. How y'all doing today?
Yay!
I'm
I'm
doing
doing well.
good.
It's been a full day, but it's good. I've been just making sure I'm getting here, getting logged in, getting ready to talk. There we
Awesome,
go.
awesome. Well, we just started doing these Q&As last month, and the idea is that anything goes. If you have any questions about writing, feel free to ask. Although today we
Mhm.
specifically wanted to talk about questions and answers related to writers' conferences,
Yeah.
because one of our favorite writers' conferences, which is WriterCon, you can find out about that at writercon.com, and it is coming up. And it's going to be a good conference. It's in the Midwest in Oklahoma City. If you're looking for a place to
Mhm.
get started writing or to sharpen those writing skills, it is definitely the place to be. Check that out at writercon.com. And so we've been talking in a lot of places about WriterCon, and we thought, we should go in even more depth. Doesn't that sound good to y'all?
It
Sounds
does.
good to me. I got to get myself lined up here.
I
This
know.
schedule
I'm looking at myself too, and I'm like,
I
I'm
know.
like falling out
this
of
is
frame.
trickier than it looks. I'm sure it looks like we're might be idiots, but we're not. The camera's a little I don't know. It looks like I'm in the center, but I'm not. But I don't want to lean. But I
Yes,
can't get Okay, there we go. I think I'm okay. I think I can live with it.
awesome.
Well, and I wanted to just preface this before we start talking because we were talking right before we went live, that we didn't want this to be just about WriterCon. We want to talk about writers conferences in general. And so we the things we're going to talk about today are going to be about just tips that you could use no matter what writers conference you go to. And I think that's important because there may be some people who are thinking about tuning in, but then they're like, well, I can't make WriterCon, and they're considering dropping away. And you don't have to, because we're going to talk about writers conferences in general, how to prepare for them, how to make the most of them, why they're
Where
so
can, where,
great.
where's the best place to find out about writers' conferences today? Like which ones are on? I used to go to shawguides.com and they always had a listing of writers' conferences. Is there any kind of portal that you all know of where you can go and find out about the latest writers' conferences?
I think Writer's Digest has a listing uh,
They do.
on their site, on their website, but you can do just a Google search. Seems like there are some individual blogs that keep track of all the different conferences
Well, I'll tell
and keep
you,
them those updated.
my strategy through the years has been to see where my friends were going,
Yes.
and then I also went. Because it's much more
Yeah,
fun
that's
with
so
friends.
smart. Oh
If your
yes.
friends can come, then it just makes it that much more exciting. I have gone by myself. It can be intimidating. Depends on what kind of personality type you are, of course.
And the size of the conference, and whether it's just a teaching conference or whether there's agents and editors there. So,
Yeah.
so if you're not familiar with writers' conferences, let's start there. Writers' conferences happen all around the nation. They are essentially get-togethers for writers to learn. But also sometimes if editors and agents show up, it's also a place that you can pitch some project that you're working on. It's a great place to get to know the craft as well as to get to know publishing today. I mean, I would say if there's one
Mhm.
thing that has made a single difference in my writing life over the years, it's been writers' conferences.
Oh yeah.
Would you agree?
Yes.
Well, for me, I sold my first book at a writers conference, so I would say definitely. I got my agent at a writers conference. I got my best writing buddy at a writers conference. So they have been completely influential in my life in multiple ways, and I think people who attend them would already agree with that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, and they can also be all kinds of prices. I've been to writers' conferences that are as low as $49, right, for a half a day conference or something like that. I've been to some that have been very expensive. My feeling over the years has been that they almost always pay for themselves in the knowledge and the connections you make. Not to mention
Mhm.
sometimes the jobs or contracts you can get, right? I mean, I definitely have connections I've made at writers' conferences with an editor that has turned into a 20-year gig with that editor, right? So that you can't really put, well, you can put a price on it, but you can't put a price on it compared to what the writers conference is charging. Because I know a lot of times, like
Mhm.
WriterCon, I want to say is a few $100s. Sometimes you look at that and you might think, oh, that's expensive, but it's actually not bad at all compared to what you
Mhm.
hopefully will take away from it.
Well, and I would say this, if we're, let's get into strategy. How do you
Yeah.
best utilize the conference versus the cost versus everything like that, right? So here's what I tell people. If you don't have a manuscript ready to pitch, then you don't necessarily need to pay for the conferences that are offering all the pitches and all the agents. Now you can go, but part of what you're paying for with these bigger conferences, and I
Mhm.
want to include something about WriterCon after this, to as a caveat. But when you're looking at these conferences that are $1,200,
Yeah.
part of what you're paying for is access to publishers and agents so you can pitch. If you don't have something ready to pitch, then you're kind of losing a significant part of the conference that you're paying for. Now, you
Yeah.
can always go and practice, and there's certainly ways you can use it, but there's also a lot of regional conferences that are teaching. And if you're learning, then those teaching conferences is where you need to go. Now, let me say this about WriterCon. One of the fantastic things about WriterCon is that we are affordable conference that is the cost is comparable to a regional conference, but we have agents and editors as well. It's one of the benefits. It's one of the nice things about being in the middle of the country and not in LA or New York. We are affordable in that way. But just as you're strategizing and looking at, okay, do I need to go to a big conference or a teaching conference, or what do I need to do? Keep that in mind.
Yeah. And
That's
then
really
there
good.
are some conferences online now too, right? I mean, you can go to some that are like online teaching
Mhm.
and training, and those can be very good, right? Because if you just want just the solid teaching, you can get a lot of that online, and even places like WriterCon have an online component where if you don't live anywhere near there, and you want to go ahead and get people to um, uh, or if you don't live anywhere near there and you want to still get the training, you can do that through getting their online option. But there's something different too about actually attending a writers
Mhm.
conference, because when you attend, there is something about that one-on-one connection, wouldn't you say?
Well, yeah, there's three components to a writers conference. There's teaching, there's pitching, and there's networking. And so in person will always give you all three of those. But you don't necessarily need all three to get benefits, from this or that. So, like, for instance, if you're writing children's literature, you're just learning, go find an online workshop on how to write children's literature so
Yeah.
that when you spend $800 at a conference, you know what you're doing when you're pitching in front of publishers and editors. Yeah.
So how might a pitch work if you decide, okay, I do want to go to WriterCon and I don't have anything prepared right now? Uh, what might you do? Is there still time to do something in the next couple weeks, or do you just need to go just for the training?
Okay. I'm going to give my advice, and then Gina can give her advice, and we'll see if our advices match up, which they might not. And that's okay, because we're all about opinion here. Um, my advice is always to give it a try. If you are writing, you typically have an idea. So it might not be polished, might not be ready to, formally pitch, but I've been known to drag people in front of an editor before, because I think you have this opportunity, and
Hmm.
give it a try. Sit down in front of the editor or the agent, say, look, I'm brand new. I have this idea. Can I practice? Can I use this 10 minutes to just practice? And can you give me some feedback? My gosh, you can learn more in that 10 minutes from that editor than, maybe the whole conference. But it typically you go into a pitch and you're like, I'm a pretty confident person. And then you sit down and try to do it and you start shaking like a leaf and you forget your name and it just all flies out the window. It is a learned craft and you have to practice it. Okay, Gina, what say you?
Well, I think that's a perfect answer, that it never hurts to sit down and talk and just sit down and give it a try. A lot of conferences do have classes beforehand that'll talk about pitching, so they kind of give you the tips if you've never done pitching before. I'm sure that there are some online YouTube videos or something where you could watch how to pitch as well, so that you can get a little bit more prepared before you sit down. But I say give it a shot, because like you said, you never know. I mean, at the worst that can happen, even though I know pitching, I don't know anybody. I really don't know anybody who says, you know what, I love to pitch. Just let me sit down and, you know, open my heart and throw out my great idea that I am so in love with, so that there's a 50-50 shot that they're just going to stomp on it. Like, nobody wants to be in that position. So, but why not try? Because there's a 50% chance they might say yes. So, and they might say, that sounds really good. Let me see it afterwards. Or, I don't know. I'm kind of picking the 50-50 out of the air that,
that's not like defined data that you,
that's
like,
not defined data.
No,
that's just,
okay.
You're either going to get a yes or a no. And, I haven't come across too many people that is sitting there in those rooms that was really, I don't know that I've ever heard of anybody who's really cruel. I'm sure there have been instances.
Not the writers' conferences we attend.
Not ours.
But stories.
I will have to tell I've written about it. If you're interested, the writewellsellwell.com blog has my rejection story on there, and boy, is it a doozy. And it's a great, you should read it. You should read it. I can't believe it happened to me and I got to write about it. But anyway, it's
great material you got.
Yeah. Well, at the time, it didn't feel like great material for a blog. It felt life crushing. But
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, and we can talk about. Okay, so let me ask Renee, in that situation, because the people, I think, when I've pitched, they've been gracious enough that they say no, or they say, yeah, send that to me, let me take a look at it. I haven't had any of the soul crushing ones, but how do you respond when you're disappointed? Because it doesn't even need to be somebody who's cruel, but when you're, a lot of times you go to these conferences, and we can talk about how you prepare for it, but you see who's coming, you're really excited to meet with this person, you sit down with them, you share your idea, and they say thank you, but no thank you. They don't say it quite like that, but they're like, yeah, that's not really right for us, but thanks a lot. So what do you do in that moment, other than walk away and lick your wounds?
Yes. Well, I can tell you what to do and what not to do. And I've seen both. When it happened to me, of course, I'm 23 years old when this happened to me. And I stood up and I said, thank you. And I walked out, and all my friends were standing there, and they saw the look on my face. I guess I was ghost white. I don't know exactly what I looked like, but it was so alarming that they whisked me out of the building into the car, and I burst into tears. I think that's okay. It was horrifying what this what this guy said and did, and he shouldn't be allowed to do it. But I have also seen people get angry. And that's an absolutely bad idea. That will haunt you forever. And listen, as tight as sometimes the writing world is, so is the editor world, so is the agent world. And when they go to lunch, well, how was your pitch, time? Well, let me tell you about this guy that pounded his fist and told me I'm an idiot. The news gets around. You have one option, it's to be gracious. That's your only option. Right there in the moment, be gracious. You can go to your hotel room later and cry or eat chocolate or whatever your coping mechanism is. Mine happens to be pasta. in case anybody wants that tip. But it's, either way, whatever you do, you always say thank you. And, first of all, it's never personal. It's all business. You have to take it that way and learn from it, which is what you learn at writers' conferences is what do you do with this? As much as you want the success, you've got to learn what to do with the failure. And what you learn to do with that failure is invaluable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have and now that sometimes we teach at writers conferences, you do get to know and you hear some of the conversations agents and that have and editors, and you realize that a lot of them don't reject manuscript. Well, really, none of them reject manuscripts just because they, just think it's a horrible idea. It's usually because their publishing company doesn't publish what you've got, or it's not the kind of thing that agent works with, or there's like a list of reasons why business wise what your project just doesn't fit with them, which is why you want to do your homework ahead of time and make sure that if you're going to take the time to pitch to someone, that maybe you're pitching something that they could actually use. But it's rarely personal, right? It's just it's business.
Well, let's talk about homework, because you mentioned, how do you do your homework before a conference? I think that's really important. That's going to get you the most bang for your buck. And so, Gina, let's talk agents. How do you do homework on agents?
I usually will I'll go to the conference website and see who's there. I go to their first I just read their bio there, because sometimes you can just tell right away that they're not someone who would be interested. I mean, if they're doing, sci-fi operas or something, that's not a genre that I am going to be in, and that's okay. So I can pretty much, strike that. On the ones that look promising, I would go to their website. I would look at their website. I'd look at the books that they had published as well. I would do some research in what have they published before, to see if I might be a good fit. I mean, if they're doing something, even though they say they are just because they say they're in fiction doesn't mean that they're going to want what I have. So I need to make sure that my genre is represented there, or that there's some kind of something that's going to connect us. And so that's where I would start. Is I would start with their website, and then I would look at what books that they had, that they have, or authors that they have represented, and I would see, does that look like somebody that would be a good fit, or that we would be in the same ballpark?
Well, I would say that's a way better plan than what mine used to be, which was to just study their picture and see if they look nice. I don't think that's quite enough.
That works though.
I mean, I stare at those people and I'm like, does he look nice? Does she look friendly? What's this going to be? And you're almost always wrong. The friendliest looking ones are the most intimidating when you sit down in front of them. But yeah, Gina, I think your method is probably better than what mine used to be.
So now when pitching, the way I learned to overcome the nerves, was to put everything I wanted to say, for the most part, down on paper. So I would create what we call a one sheet, right? And I would have at the top of the one sheet the name of my project and a tagline, which hopefully I would have memorized, right? So that I can say, well, this is, such and such, and it's about this. And then I would maybe have some, just bullet points on that sheet that they might find interesting, as well as my own bio at the bottom. That's everything I put on one sheet. More often than not, I found that when I do my pitches, when I hand them that first, I'm able to give a good portion of the pitch with them kind of looking at the paper, and they're kind of taking it in both audibly from hearing me and reading it on the paper. But it takes the pressure off of having to stare someone in the eyes when you're starting off. And that worked a lot for me, just because I would get so nervous about staring. And I remember I actually had one agent who I handed her my one sheet, and she took it and she turned it over and put her hands on top of it and just stared me in the eyes. I couldn't hardly finish a sentence because it was so nerve-wracking. It's kind of creepy, right? So
well, did you look at her picture? Because was she staring like this in her picture? Did that give you the clue that she might be kind of
Okay, see?
I should have known better.
Renee's method would have worked better than mine.
But
no, that's good. That's good.
Go prepared with material that you can kind of use as a crutch, right? And there believe me, people give all kinds of different pitches that are from great to really lousy. So as long as you can land somewhere in between, you're fine. And really, just go ahead and go use something like that as a crutch, and don't be afraid of the silence, right? If you finish your pitch and they haven't looked up yet, don't feel like you have to fill that silence by just talking more, because that's our tendency to do, right? We'll tend to, things fall silent. Oh, I need to fill this because it's uncomfortable. We just start talking. Don't feel like you need to do that. If they're reading, let them read, and wait until they have a question or something. And often they'll ask a question after that, and it'll suddenly make everything become more comfortable. Is that how you guys pitch?
Pretty close to it. I I can't. This will probably age me a little bit, but there was a time when there wasn't really such a thing as a one sheet. Nobody thought, hey, maybe we should put this on one sheet. It was just either you had the manuscript or you soft pitched it, and that was sort of it. I remember when people started doing one sheets, and I was like, wow, that's brilliant. Let's all do these. And I think they actually came from the film world, to tell you the truth. But
yeah,
anyway, I was never good at memorizing. I'm still not. Nobody should cast me in a play, but I knew my story. So I knew, okay, I've got 30 seconds or 60 seconds or however long that I've picked to do it. And I would tell it more than pitch it. So I always, I got some good advice when I was in broadcasting school. I quit that, by the way, because I saw broadcast news and it seemed like a horrifying occupation. But when I was in broadcasting school, one of the things they taught us is that if you're looking at the camera and you're thinking about all the people staring at you, you're going to flub up because that's too intimidating. So when you look at the camera, think about your grandma or your mom or whoever makes you comfortable, and have that person in your head when you're talking. And that made a huge difference for me. And so that's kind of how I feel when I'm pitching to people, is like, just, that's your mom, and you're just telling the new story that you came up with. And for me, I'm able to come across more organically that way. But the one sheet has been nice too, because it also gives the editor something to do with their eyes. And then, it just makes it a nice reference point for both of you to be able to look down or to, follow along or whatever. So it's a good idea, those one sheets. Yeah. And you can find information on how to put those together. There's no correct format on a one sheet. It's really more just whatever information you need to put on there. Don't put too much on there, but.
So I was going to say, I think there's an incorrect format, and that's trying to put too much in there, right? Don't do that. It's better to keep it simple than to do too much.
Yeah. I would, if I could just add one thing, if you do some prep work beforehand and you know who it is that you're meeting with, I think that it's fine to let them drop that kind of hint that that you've done some work by saying something like, I know you've represented this kind of person, or I know you've published this book, and I believe that my book is reminiscent of that. Or if it's a magazine, which I'm not sure if we have any at WriterCon, if we have any magazine editors coming, but where you could say, I know that you speak to this market about this topic. And so that's why I came to you, because I thought you might be someone who would be interested in this, just to kind of let them know that you've done your homework. I think it also shows a level of professionalism to be able to say, I've done this, and I know this might be something that you might be interested in. Maybe not, but at least I know what I'm talking about. So we'll start there. So
That's absolutely right, Gina. And I think, there is a fine line. I've heard pitches where people sound super desperate. Like, if you don't accept this, I don't know what my next steps will be. And I don't know, that kind of thing. You don't want to come across as desperate. You just want to come across as informed, as Gina said, and friendly. That's the other thing, is that when editors and agents are watching you pitch, they are looking at two things: your story or your book, and your personality, and your friendliness, because what they're looking for is long-term relationships, right? Like, they're like, can we do 5 books with this person? Because that's what they want. If they're going to invest in one book with you, they want to invest in 5, because that initial book, that initial launch, new author, is way more expensive than the rest of the books. And so the last thing they want is to pour all this money into an author who's like, well, I just had that one book. And, they want a long-term relationship. So, as much as you want your book idea to shine through, you also want your personality to shine through, and to show them, like what Gina said, I'm professional, I'm easy to work with, I know what I'm talking about, I've done some work on my end. All those things are beneficial. Remember to smile. If you're sweating profusely, make a joke. Like, just be yourself. Just pretend like you're, in front of a friend. And listen, I've cracked plenty of jokes that have not been received from the other end. They're just straight faced, just, like, and let me tell you another thing too. Not only should you be pitching, but you should also be watching them. Is this an agent that I think is going to work for me? I mean, they're not laughing at my jokes. I don't know if we can work for 10 years together. You know what I mean? Like, right. You're auditioning them too. I mean, it's true. You want to work with people you enjoy working with. So pay attention.
I think that is such an important point. And I remember the conference I was at where I discovered the change in mindset, and it took away all my nervousness. And that was when I realized all those agents and editors were there because they were looking for material, right? They were hoping to find that gem at the conference. And when I realized, they're not here just to criticize what I'm putting before them. They are here because they are hoping that they can find exactly what they want. And if I can show them that what I have is what they want, they're going to be super happy. And that's a whole change in mindset, because we definitely go into these things often thinking, okay, I hope I do this right. or I hope I don't fail at this, right? And am I going to come off looking stupid or whatever? Here's the thing. A lot of these agents and editors, they're kind of thinking the same thing. They're thinking, okay, I got to go sit in the room. I hope I come off professional. I hope that, I hear something good. Like, they're looking for that good material, and that change of mindset will take away so much nervousness.
Sure will.
It really is a two-way street that you're looking for, because you do want somebody that's going to be, well, I think you said it, Renee, and we've had so many conversations lately that I'm missing it. But you were talking not long ago, you were talking about finding an agent, and how you knew you wanted somebody who was more forceful than you were, but you didn't want a pit bull. You didn't want somebody that you had to be embarrassed by, or, be sitting there cringing if you're in the room with them, because they're just being, too over the top for you. Now, some people might want the pit bull, but you want the German Shepherd. You want the one that can be kind of lovable, or the Golden Retriever. You want something that's a little more lovable, but is still a strong worker for you. So
that's right. Yeah. And by the way, I'm going to be teaching on that very thing, things to look for in an agent. That will be at Writing Momentum. And if you haven't joined Writing Momentum with us, well, that's what I meant. Writing Moments. I also need an editor all the time, as you can tell. Right. Well, it's through Writing Momentum. They're called Writing Moments. And Gina and Chris and I put those on, and they're fantastic. And we can tell you more about them later. You can go to writingmoments.com. But next Wednesday, I'm going to be teaching on the 5 to 8 things that you need to look for in an agent once you get serious about it. And, you know, sometimes we feel desperate that we need one, but you want to make sure you find the right one for you.
That's good. Yeah, we've started these just as a sidebar to what we're talking about with writers conferences. We've started these writing moments a couple months ago, and there's just a time that we can all get together. Every Wednesday we get together with other writers, and we get together over Zoom, and we just have a short time of like a training, and then we have 45 minutes that we write on our individual projects together. And the people who have attended have told us that they have written so many words in those sessions. So they've gotten a lot done, but also they love the training time, because it's a time when myself or Gina or Renee will share the latest thing that we have learned, or something that we have learned over our careers as writers, and we just share it with you, and you can ask questions, and it's just a good time together. So if you're interested in that, check it out at writingmoments.com. We would love to have you join us. So continuing to talk about writers conferences and pitching, should you pitch if you have a self-published book that you're going with? Because a lot of writers now go to writers conferences to learn how to self-publish, still learn more about the craft. You know, they know that they want to do this. Is there any room for them in the pitching room if they have a self-published book? And I have an answer for this, but I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts.
I would say it depends on how, I think it depends on how committed they are to self-publishing. You know, I meet people who are like, yeah, I'm definitely self-publishing. Well, then they probably don't need to talk to anybody. But if you're kind of on the fence, or you're kind of weighing your options, and we actually know somebody who did this. She is self-publishing her book, Christy Johnson. She is self-publishing her book, but she did go and talk to an agent, or I honestly actually don't know if it's an agent or a publisher, but she was asking the question, what can you do for me that I can't do for myself? That was the question she was asking. And, you know, and her answer in that may look totally different than my answer, or Renee's answer, or Chris's answer. Each of us might have a different different outcome with that. But I thought that was I thought that was really smart of her. If I can just brag on my friend for a little bit, I thought that was smart of her, because she discovered she's very savvy, and she was running the numbers, and she came to say, okay, wait a minute. For her, she had a strong audience that was already built in. So she said, okay, what can they do for me that I can't do for myself? And what she found was that for her, she had already done all the legwork, that if they took her book and they were interested in it, she had already laid the foundation that they were just going to build upon. So for her, she said, well, why do I need them? I'm going to do it myself. And she's been successful at that. But for somebody else, but I will say Christy is absolutely a go-getter. She's absolutely somebody who loves to learn. So she is willing to learn how to publish, how to market, how to build and strategize. I mean, she's just really
and over the years, she has built a large audience of her own, right? She has a large mailing list. She's built a large audience. She has a very devoted audience. And so she knew when she was going to publish that she was already going to have a built-in number of sales, probably because of that. And so she wanted to know, can you take me anywhere further than that? Especially if it's niched at all, right? And so those were good questions. And so, yeah, that's what I always tell people if they're self-publishing is, look, if there's a chance for you to pitch it to someone, these are very knowledgeable people, right? Most of them, they work with manuscripts all the time. If nothing else, go and talk to them and pitch them the idea and just ask for feedback. And you will often get very good one-on-one feedback that doesn't cost you anything. And, you know, and that 10 minutes may change the way you want to approach your book, or it may just confirm what you've already got there. And sometimes it may open a further conversation where they say, you know, I like your idea so much, let me show you what I can do with this, and you may reconsider the self-publishing. Or it may just confirm, like it did with Christy, that self-publishing was absolutely the way to go. So my point is, if you've got pitching times at a conference, don't waste that opportunity. Use it, whether you're self-publishing or whether you're publishing fiction or nonfiction. Definitely approach someone, because you can learn so much with that.
Well, and can I have us pivot just a minute, because we're
Yes.
talking about pitching and we're talking about meeting with editors and agents, and I think that is a lot of times what people go to conferences for, and I think that is very valid. But I think just as important are the connections that you make, the professional connections and the friendships that you build at conferences. And can you guys talk about what that has meant to you, and how those relationships have benefited you?
Yeah, for me, I've built lifelong friendships, and it's been really fun. They've been great support for me. I've even had friends, we all started at the same, like, I remember several of us started, it was our first writers conference back in the 90s. And now, a couple of my friends are super famous writers, and that's okay. There's no jealousy there. I work my way through that with Bird by Bird with Anne Lamott. Read it if you haven't.
Yes.
But that's so fun to see, like, all of our careers grow together. And so yeah, I mean, that, and beyond friendships, there's also been professional networking that's happened. Editors that I have sat with doing lunches with them, and they're in nonfiction. I don't publish nonfiction, and 8 years down the road, they're the head fiction acquisitions editor at another house. And we're great friends because we just would eat lunch together, because we liked each other. And now all of a sudden they're an acquiring editor in something that I do. That happens all the time. Editors move and shift, and agents become editors, editors become agents. So, don't burn any bridges along the way, for sure.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, I've had the same experience. I built lifelong friendships, and in fact, I was just thinking, didn't we both meet you, Renee, at a writers conference? Gina and I met you at a writers conference, right? So those kind of connections happen all the time. Every writers conference you go to, if you show yourself friendly and you get to know other people there, you can really make strong connections. And really, a lot of people in our lives, I think, are friends that we met at writers conferences, because when you get there, you'll find that it's kind of your tribe, right? And so you automatically connect with those people, and you'll want to stay in touch. But as I said earlier, I've also built professional relationships. I've met editors that 20 years later, I'm still writing for those editors, because we met each other at a writers conference, and it kind of changed the course of our lives a little bit. It helped us pivot in a different direction.
Absolutely.
Well, and I would even say that some of the people that you've met, and this is kind of what Renee was talking about there, but we've met people that, as we've gone through our careers, they have gone in a little bit different direction, but they've learned some things that now I'm ready to learn. And because I've got those connections, I can go ahead and learn that writer who now has some kind of website that is specific for their area, or maybe I have a writer friend who is part of an online group, or maybe I have another writer friend who has a really good illustrator that they know, or maybe there's another writer friend that does children's books, and I'm thinking about writing a children's books. Like, all of these connections, just because we're not beneficial to one another at this particular moment in time, doesn't mean that in time these other just writing friends aren't going to be beneficial, even if they're like you never know, you might be able to find your first beta reader, somebody who's going to give you that feedback, or someone who is a writer, but maybe in their spare time, they're also an editor. And so, you're looking for an editor, you want somebody who understands your quirky sense of humor or whatever. That's somebody that, or you want somebody who's going to be honest with you. All of a sudden it's like you've got this group of people that you can draw from. So
Yeah,
even
that's
just
really good.
as writers, we can help strengthen one another. Even if they're never part of the publishing part of your world, they could be part of your marketing or your branding or developing your product. Or if you decide, oh, I've been traditionally published, I'm ready to try being independently published, maybe they can set you up with connections to make that as simple as possible.
Well, I think that's good advice. Let's transition for just a little bit into classes.
I was
Okay.
just gonna say the same thing, Renee. We're on the same mindset here.
There's a strategy. Make sure you know what classes are being offered before you go. So, and many people, I think most people make a map for themselves for their day, you know, a schedule. I'm going to hit this class. I'm going to hit this class. I'm going to hit this class. My buddy's going to go to this class. I'm going to go to this class, and we're going to meet at lunch and compare notes. WriterCon, for instance, you can purchase the package and get all the classes if you want, which is nice. But yeah, I mean, go in, you don't want to show up the first day starry-eyed and giddy and have no idea what you're getting ready to do. Making sure that, and in WriterCon, we have an app. So that's great. We have an app that you can get. And of course, it's on our website. But most conferences, or they should have, you know, online the classes that they're offering. Check, by the way, check the schedule frequently, because writers drop or speakers drop out for one reason or another. We have to change things around. So make sure, you know, that you're checking it frequently. But have a strategy. And I always say, attend one class that you wouldn't normally attend, just for fun, poetry or, you know, something fun that you're like, this is out of my wheelhouse, but just do it. It's fun. It keeps you alert, keeps you educated. And I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And
Well, and like you said, I'm really enjoying the app that WriterCon has this year, because you can start. I tackle classes like I tackle um, publishers and editors, where I look at the class, I look at who the person is, I'll read the person's bio, see if we're going to be, if there's what kind of connection I can make there, just with, are they going to be talking about a subject? Because sometimes people title their classes and it's not really clear what it's going to be about. And even with the description, it can feel a little bit fuzzy. So I will read the description. I'll look at the person, because sometimes I've gone to classes because I really liked a person's bio more than I liked the class that they were talking about. And then there's the other side where I like the class, but I really don't know anything about the person, or their bio doesn't, I don't feel like it gives me enough information. But I've already started going through the app, clicking on the different classes I'm going to go to, so that when I walk in there on day one, I'm already knowing where I'm going to go. That's
Yep.
just me. I like to know where I'm going to go. Some things are still open, and there's several sessions that I'm kind of deciding, do I want to go to this one or that one, this one or that one? You know, I'm trying to figure it out.
it can be a little overwhelming because at a place like WriterCon, there are so many classes. I've been scrolling here since we first started talking about this, and it just keeps going. Right? There's so many, because they'll have 4 classes at a time many times. And yeah, I totally echo what both of you are saying. Is find sessions on craft. I also recommend you attend sessions on things that you don't know anything about, but you'd love to, you know, maybe you've heard something about. For instance, you may not have ever thought about doing audiobooks. I recommend attending an audiobook 101 class. You may be surprised how easy something like that is, or how much you might enjoy it, or you just want to become familiar with the field, right? Or if there's a certain kind of writing you do, maybe attend one on a different kind of writing, and you might learn things from that other kind of writing that you can apply to what you do. So I always say, don't just not attend an hour because you don't think one of the 4 classes may work for you or something like that. Just jump into one, because you may always be surprised about how good some of these sessions can be.
Well,
Absolutely.
can I just ask, who which speaker or class are you each interested in going to? Or are you guys like, I'm not going to miss that one?
At WriterCon?
Yes, at WriterCon this year. I'm just
Yeah,
curious,
this
what
is
is it that
WriterCon.
you're
I'm
like
scrolling through.
going, I'm not gonna miss this one. I can't believe I'm gonna get to hear this, because I'm actually, I do have a few that I'm having trouble narrowing down.
Well, I will. I'm going to make this easy for me and probably say something that Renee may say too. I have heard Stephen James talk before, and he is a fantastic speaker and a really good teacher on fiction.
Hmm.
And so he's teaching multiple classes this year. I will probably make sure I'm in as many of his classes as I can be, because I know what I'm going to leave with is going to just be really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. He's brilliant. He's one of, um, I mean, at the time, there's a very small number of people in the United States that have a master's in storytelling, and he does. So if you're in fiction or any kind of storytelling, narrative nonfiction, even Stephen James would definitely be somebody to hit. We've got Bob Sines, who is a hoot. First of all, if you ever wanted to know what a Hallmark writer looks like, he will blow your mind, because I had an image of Hallmark writers, and Bob wasn't in that image. And he has done incredible work with Hallmark. He's really fun. And he's actually teaching a class based on his book. I believe this is right. I hope I'm right. That's Not the Way It Works. And
Yeah, I saw that on there.
I saw he's doing one of those.
okay. Yeah, we've talked about so many classes over the past few weeks, but he's teaching that. And if you're interested in screenwriting, that's an essential class. That book has taken the screenwriting world by storm. And one of the reasons is because he is sort of pulling back the curtain on the way screenwriting really works, and dispelling some of the myths. So it's a great book, but I'm going to love to hear Bob teach it in person. So
I want to go to one of his classes too, because I didn't get to go to his classes. His classes last year, he was there, and he was on opposite of some other, I think he may have even been opposite of a time when I was teaching, and so I couldn't go. And I was so excited to hear that he was coming back, because I definitely want to hear him. So yeah. Well, you guys,
Our friend Shell just said, love the tip to go to a class you wouldn't normally go to. Great way to stretch yourself or stumble across an interest you didn't know you had. Absolutely. Our friend Shell, by the way, is going to be teaching at WriterCon. You want to check out her classes too. She's always a very good teacher and has always material that you can walk away with.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Hi, Shell. Yeah. So
Well,
we've got
I interrupted you,
incredible
Renee. What were you going to say?
I have no idea. But if I'm ever interrupted, that's the end of the thought, because I won't be able to remember how to get back to it. But we've got a lot of classes, and a lot of great teachers. We've got a class on almost everything, I think. So we've so got the opportunity. This is closing fast, by the way. So hopefully there's still spaces. Manuscript critiques and consultations. You can check that out on our website. Where you can get 10 pages critiqued, or you can have 30-minute consult with a professional. Those are very valuable things that you can use from our conference, and many conferences have that as well. So check that out for sure. We've also got a lot of night owls, a lot of panels. I mean, honestly, like, we've got a lot. I hope we can fit it all in. I don't know. I hope whoever's handling the schedule has this all worked out, because it seems like we have more than we can handle. But I think it's going to be.
Isn't that fun. You? Aren't you the schedule person?
No, well, I just sort of monitor the schedule person, but that's a terrible idea too. So, yeah, we try to work it out. I mean, we're all creative, so what are we doing? Handling schedules and spreadsheets? I don't know, but it's going to be fun.
We're all going to be there. That's you can find out more about WriterCon at WriterCon.com. It's going to happen over Labor Day weekend, so just coming up here in a couple weeks, and we're all going to be there. We'd love to see you there. Meanwhile, if you'd like to also catch up with us on a weekly basis, Renee, Gina, and myself all have a little get together we call Writing Moments, and we get together over Zoom and we write together for 15 minutes, and then we have a training for 15 minutes, and then we write together for 45.
Yeah.
And so we'd love to have you join us. Check that out at writingmoments.com. Well, thank you guys for both joining me today. This has been fun and very informative about writers' conferences. I always love talking writers' conferences because I love going to them. Like I said, it's our tribe, right?
Absolutely.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we're going to sign off now. Be sure to check out the replay if you missed any of this. We have some good information at the beginning too. And otherwise, thank you for watching, because together we have writing momentum.
That's right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.